Lorenzo Pellegrini's hand trembled as he watched the monitor. 37 hidden cameras, 37 angles of his dying 6-year-old daughter. And now this stranger, this maid named Emma Foster, was holding Sophia's small hand, whispering words he couldn't hear. "Who the hell are you really?" he growled into the darkness. Because the background check said one thing. His gut screamed another. And the file on his desk, the one his men had just delivered, proved that everything Emma had told him was a lie. Before we dive into tonight's story, please hit that subscribe button. Stay with me until the very end and drop the name of the city you're watching from. In the comments, I want to see just how far this story of mine has traveled tonight. Now let's begin. The black iron gates of the Pellegrini estate groaned open at exactly 7:42 in the morning, and Emma Foster held her breath as the rented sedan rolled up the long gravel drive. She had practiced this moment in the mirror for 3 nights. She had rehearsed her answers. She had memorized the fake credentials sitting in the manila folder on her lap, and still her hands were shaking. "Ma'am, we're here," the driver said quietly. "Thank you." Emma stepped out, clutching her worn leather bag against her chest like a shield. She was 31 years old, 5'4", with tired green eyes and auburn hair, pulled into a tight, practical bun. Nothing about her looked dangerous. Nothing about her looked like a woman with secrets. That was the point. "Miss Foster," the voice belonged to an older man in a charcoal suit, his hands folded neatly in front of him. His face was carved from stone. "Yes, that's me. My name is Matteo. I am Mr. Pellegrini's head of household. Please come with me." Emma followed him through a massive oak door, and her heart punched against her ribs. She had seen photographs of this estate in the dossier she'd studied for weeks. But standing inside of it now, hearing her own footsteps echo down a marble hallway, it felt like walking into the belly of a whale. "Mr. Pellegrini is a busy man," Matteo said without turning around. "He will see you for exactly 4 minutes. You will answer his questions directly. You will not offer opinions. You will not ask questions of your own. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir." "And Miss Foster?" "Yes, sis." Matteo stopped walking. He turned slowly and his dark eyes pinned her to the spot. "If you lie to him, he will know. He always knows. Do you understand me?" Emma's throat closed. For one terrible second, she thought about turning around, walking back down that gravel drive, getting in a taxi and disappearing forever. She had made it this far. She could still walk away. But then she thought about the little girl with leukemia, the little girl who hadn't spoken a single word in 11 months. "I understand," Emma said. Matteo nodded once, turned and pushed open a pair of heavy double doors. Lorenzo Pellegrini was standing at a window with his back to the room when Emma entered. He was taller than she expected. His shoulders were broad under a perfectly tailored black suit. His hair was dark silver, just beginning to touch the temples. And when he finally turned around, Emma's first thought was that he had the coldest eyes she had ever seen in a human being. "Sit," he said. Emma sat. "You are Emma Foster, 31 years old, registered pediatric nurse from Boston, 7 years at Mass General, 2 years of private care. Your last patient was a boy named Charlie Weston, who died of osteosarcoma in April. Is that correct?" "Yes, sir." "Look at me when you speak." Emma's eyes snapped up. "Yes, sir, that's correct." "Why did you leave Boston?" She had rehearsed this answer 100 times. "After Charlie passed, I needed a change. Private families pay better, and I prefer one-on-one care to hospital work." "You prefer it?" "Yes, sir." "You prefer to watch one child die slowly instead of many children quickly. Is that what you were telling me, Gigi?" Emma's jaw clenched. "I prefer to give one family everything I have, Mr. Pellegrini, instead of giving 12 families pieces of me." For the first time, something flickered in Lorenzo's cold, dark eyes. He stepped closer to the desk. He picked up her folder. He flipped through it without reading a single page. "My daughter is 6 years old," he said. "Her name is Sophia. She was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia 14 months ago. She is currently in partial remission, but her immune system is compromised and she requires constant care. She has also, as you may have read, stopped speaking." "Yes, sir, I read that in the file." 11 months. Not one word. Not to me, not to the doctors, not to the 4 caregivers who came before you. 4. The first one quit after 9 days, the second after 3 weeks. The third I fired, The fourth, Sophia bit hard enough to draw blood. Emma couldn't help it. The corner of her mouth twitched. Lorenzo saw it. You find that amusing, Miss Foster? No, sir, I find it understandable. She's sick, she's terrified. And four strangers have marched through her room like it's a train station. Of course she bit someone. The room went very, very quiet. Matteo, standing by the door, shifted his weight. Lorenzo set the folder down. You have a sharp tongue. I have an honest one, sir. If you want someone who will nod and smile, there are agencies for that. I'm not from one of them. No, Lorenzo said slowly. You are not. He stared at her for what felt like a full minute. You start tomorrow, 6 a.m. Matteo will show you your quarters. You will live on the grounds. You will not leave without permission. You will not speak to the press, the staff, or anyone outside this property about my daughter's condition. If you violate any of these terms, there will be consequences. Do you understand? I understand. Good. Get out. Emma stood up on legs that didn't feel like her own. She made it all the way to the door before Lorenzo's voice stopped her. Miss Foster. Yes, sir. If you hurt my daughter even by accident, I will destroy you. Are we clear? She turned and looked him dead in the eye. Mr. Pellegrini, she said quietly, if anyone hurts your daughter, while I am in that room, it will be over my body. Are we clear? Lorenzo didn't answer. But as Emma walked out of that office, she could feel him watching her, and she knew down in her bones that she had just walked into something she might never walk out of. The next morning at 5:58 a.m., Emma stood outside Sophia Pellegrini's bedroom door. She took a deep breath. She smoothed her scrubs. She knocked softly. No answer. Of course there was no answer. Sophia, she said gently, my name is Emma. I'm going to come in now, okay? I'm going to open the door very slowly. She pushed the door open 1 careful inch at a time. The little girl was sitting up in bed, a blanket pulled up to her chin, watching the door with enormous brown eyes. She was bald. She was impossibly thin. And she was looking at Emma the way a rabbit looks at a fox. Hi, sweetheart, Emma said softly. She didn't step into the room. She stayed in the doorway. I'm not going to come any closer until you want me to. Okay. Sophia didn't move. Emma sat down on the floor, right there in the doorway. She crossed her legs and set her bag beside her. I'm just going to sit here for a little while, she said. No rush. We've got all day. 5 minutes passed, 10, 15. Emma talked the whole time in a low, easy voice. She talked about the weather. She talked about the beaux she'd had as a kid. She talked about the fact that she was really hungry, and she kind of wished she'd eaten breakfast. She never once asked Sophia a question, never once told her to come closer, never once asked her to speak. After 32 minutes, Sophia slid 1 inch closer to the edge of the bed. Emma didn't react, just kept talking. After 45 minutes, Sophia put one bare foot on the floor. Emma pulled an apple out of her bag, took a bite, and kept talking about her childhood dog. After an hour and 10 minutes, Sophia was standing in the middle of the room staring at her. You want to sit with me, honey? Emma asked very casually. There's room. Sophia didn't answer. But after another agonizing minute, she took 1 step forward, then another. Then she walked across the room and sat down 3 feet away from Emma, wrapped her skinny arms around her skinny knees, and watched her. Emma felt tears sting the back of her eyes. She did not let them fall. Hi, Sophia, she whispered. Sophia blinked at her. You don't have to say anything, Emma said. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever if you don't want to. I'm just really, really glad to meet you. And somewhere deep inside the walls of that bedroom, hidden behind a vent, behind a mirror, behind the eye of a stuffed bear, a camera recorded every second. Lorenzo Pellegrini watched the monitor in his private office, and for the first time in 11 months, he could not breathe. His daughter was sitting on the floor, with a stranger, voluntarily. Sir, Matteo said from the doorway, is everything all right? Lorenzo didn't answer. He couldn't. He was staring at the screen, at the small, bald head of his baby girl, at the tired green eyes of the woman who had somehow gotten her out of that bed after 11 months of silence. Sir, get out, Matteo. Sir, get out. Matteo got out, and Lorenzo Pellegrini, the man who had buried his wife, buried his brother, buried 3 rivals and a dozen of his own sins, sat alone in that dark office and pressed his fist against his mouth, so that nobody, not even his own cameras, could hear the sound that tried to escape him. 3 weeks passed. Sophia still did not speak, but she followed Emma everywhere. She followed her to the window in the mornings when Emma opened the curtains. She followed her to the small kitchen off the bedroom when Emma made her tea. She sat on the edge of the bathtub while Emma drew her baths and tested the water. She held Emma's hand during her medication. She clutched Emma's sleeve during her blood draws, and when she had her chemotherapy treatments, the ones that left her shaking and pale and sick. She crawled into Emma's lap afterward and pressed her face into Emma's shoulder until the trembling stopped. Emma, for her part, never pushed, never pried, never begged for a word, a sound, a nod. She just stayed. And on the 23rd day, something happened. Emma was reading aloud from a book of old fairy tales, the dog-eared copies she had brought from her own apartment, the one with the red cover, when Sophia reached over and pointed at a picture of a swan. "The swan," Emma said, "careful, careful. You like the swan, honey." Sophia nodded. It was the first voluntary response she had given to anyone about anything in almost a year. Emma smiled so hard her face hurt. And that night when she went back to her quarters, she sat on the edge of the bed and cried until she had nothing left. The problem started on a Tuesday. Emma was helping Sophia get dressed for the morning when she noticed a tiny black dot in the eye of the stuffed bear sitting on the dresser. She froze. She looked away casually. She finished buttoning Sophia's nightgown. She kissed the top of her bald head and said, "I'll be right back, sweet pea. I'm just gonna grab you some juice." She walked calmly out of the room. She walked calmly down the hallway. She walked calmly into the kitchen. And then she stood over the sink, gripped the counter with both hands, and shook so hard she thought she might throw up. Cameras. There were cameras in that child's bedroom. Emma closed her eyes. She should have seen it sooner. She should have checked. She should have known a man like Lorenzo Pellegrini, a man with bodyguards at every door, a man whose name was whispered in certain neighborhoods of certain cities. Of course he had cameras. Of course he was watching. The question was, how long had he been watching her, and what had he seen? She thought back. She thought about every word she'd said in that room, every conversation, every bedtime story, every promise. She had been careful. She had been pseudo careful. She had never mentioned her real name, never mentioned her real hometown, never mentioned the one person in the world she was not supposed to have known, Juliana. Emma whispered the name in her head and her stomach clenched. If Lorenzo ever found out Miss Foster, Emma jumped. Matteo was standing in the doorway. "Are you all right?" Yes, I'm fine. I thought I was going to be sick for a second. Something I ate, maybe?" Matteo's eyes flicked over her. "Mr. Pellegrini would like to see you in his office, now." Lorenzo was standing at the window again when she walked in. "Close the door," he said. Emma closed it. "Sit." She sat. He didn't turn around. "It's been 24 days, he said. 24 days since you walked into this house. My daughter has not spoken, but she ate breakfast with you this morning. She has not eaten a full meal in 7 months, Miss Foster. Did you know that?" "I know, sir, I didn't." She smiled last Thursday. At something you said about a don't. I did not know she remembered how to smile. Emma's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. "Mr. Pellegrini, I want to ask you a question, Miss Foster, and I want you to answer it honestly." He turned, and those cold, dark eyes locked onto hers. "Why are you really here?" The room seemed to tilt. Emma's mouth went dry. "Sir, you heard me. I'm here because your daughter needed a caregiver. I saw the posting. I applied. That's not what I asked." Lorenzo walked around the desk. He leaned back against it, crossed his arms, and stared down at her. "Women like you don't walk into houses like mine by accident, Miss Foster. You knew what this job was. You knew who I was, and you took it anyway. That takes one of two things, desperation or a reason." Emma's hands were shaking in her lap. She pressed them flat against her thighs. "I needed the money, Mr. Pellegrini." "Liar. Excuse me. You had 2 other offers, both for more money, both for less dangerous employers. I had my people check." Emma's breath stopped. "You ran a background check on me after you hired me. I run background checks on everyone, 3 times. The 3rd one just came back this morning." He walked slowly back around the desk. He pulled open a drawer. He took out a thick manila envelope. He dropped it on the desk in front of her. Open it, he said. Emma didn't move. Open it, Miss Foster. Her fingers felt numb. She reached for the envelope. She opened the flap. She pulled out the contents, and her blood turned to ice. The photograph on top was of a little girl maybe 7 or 8 years old with tired green eyes and auburn hair sitting on a porch step in a photograph taken more than 20 years ago. And standing behind her with one hand on the little girl's shoulder was a young, beautiful woman in a white summer dress. Giuliana Pellegrini, Lorenzo's late wife. Now, Lorenzo said softly, his voice like a knife sliding out of its sheath, would you like to explain to me, Miss Foster, or whoever you really are, why my dead wife has her hand on your shoulder in a photograph from 1998? Emma looked up at him, her lips parted, no sound came out. And across the hall, down the long marble corridor, in a small pink bedroom on the second floor, 6-year-old Sofia Pellegrini was standing at her window holding the red fairy tale book against her chest, waiting for the woman who had just become the only thing in the world she trusted, waiting for the woman who in the next 60 seconds was about to lose everything. Emma's hand trembled as she set the photograph down on the desk. Mr. Pellegrini, I can explain. Then explain. It's not what you think. You don't know what I think, Miss Foster. His voice was dangerously calm. Because if you did, you would understand that the only thing keeping me from throwing you out of this house in the next 30 seconds is the fact that my daughter ate breakfast this morning for the first time in 7 months. So I am giving you exactly one chance. One, tell me who you are. Emma looked down at the photograph again, at the little girl on the porch step, at the woman in the white summer dress with her hand resting gently on the little girl's shoulder, and something broke inside her. 23 years of silence. 23 years of carrying a secret that had crushed her from the inside out. 23 years of running. She closed her eyes. My name is Emma Foster, she said quietly. That part is true, but I was born Emma Marchetti in a town outside Naples. My mother was a seamstress. My father, I never knew my father. Lorenzo didn't move. When I was 7 years old, my mother died. Tuberculosis. There was no family to take me. I was going to be sent to an orphanage in Rome, and her voice cracked. I was terrified. I had heard stories about that place. Terrible stories. Go on. There was a woman, a beautiful woman, who used to come to my mother's shop. She was kind to me. She brought me sweets. She taught me English words when nobody else would. Emma's eyes filled. I didn't know who she was, Mr. Pellegrini. I didn't know her last name. I didn't know she was married to a man like you. I just knew that she was the only person in the world who had ever looked at me like I mattered. Lorenzo's jaw tightened. She came to the funeral, Emma whispered. My mother's funeral. I was sitting on the church steps alone in a dress that didn't fit. And she sat down next to me and she said, little one, you are not going to that place. I promise you that. And she took out her checkbook and she made everything disappear. The orphanage, the papers, the bureaucrats, all of it. She found me a family, a good family, in Boston. American citizens. She paid for my plane ticket. She paid for my schooling. She paid for everything for 15 years, and I never once in all that time saw her face again. Just the checks, every September for my tuition, and a card every Christmas with no return address. Emma finally looked up. I never knew her last name, Mr. Pellegrini. I swear to you on my life, I didn't find out until 3 years ago. What happened 3 years ago? The check stopped coming. Lorenzo went very still. I looked her up, Emma said. I hired someone, a private investigator. It took him a long time, but he found her. Giuliana Pellegrini, deceased, car accident, survived by her husband Lorenzo and her daughter Sofia. And then I read about Sofia's diagnosis in a newspaper article, and I couldn't stop thinking about her, about the little girl Giuliana had left behind, the little girl who had lost her mother the same way I had lost mine. Emma's tears spilled over. I had to come. I had to. I owed your wife everything, Mr. Pellegrini. Everything. She gave me a life. And if I could give even a fraction of that back to her daughter, I had to try. The silence that followed was the longest of Emma's life. Lorenzo didn't speak for a full minute. He just stood there staring at her, his chest rising and falling slowly. Then he reached down and picked up the photograph. He stared at it for a long time. My wife, he said finally. Used to disappear for long weekends. She told me she was visiting her sister in Milan. I never checked. I believed her. He set the photograph back down. She didn't have a sister in Milan, did she? She had a lot of little girls, Mr. Pellegrini, in a lot of places. I was one of them. Lorenzo closed his eyes. For a moment, just a moment, the man who had buried 3 rivals looked like he might fall apart. Then he opened his eyes and the mask was back. Why did you lie on your application? Because I couldn't walk into this house as Emma Marchetti. Because you would have turned me away. Because you would have thought I was here to hurt you or extort you or I don't know, Mr. Pellegrini. But I knew you would not let me near your daughter if you knew the truth. You're right, I wouldn't have. Then you understand why I did it. I understand why you did it, Lorenzo said coldly. That does not mean I forgive it. Emma nodded. She wiped her cheeks with the back of her hand. What happens now? Lorenzo didn't answer. He walked to the window. He stood there with his back to her, and for a long, long time, he didn't move. Mr. Pellegrini, go back to your room, Miss Foster. Sir, please, Sophia. I said go back to your room. Are you firing me? He turned, and Emma saw something in his eyes she had never seen before. Something raw, something cracked open. I don't know yet, he said. Get out, I need to think. Emma stood up on shaking legs. She walked to the door. Her hand was on the knob when Lorenzo spoke again. Miss Foster. Yes, sir. My wife. Was she happy when you knew her? Emma's throat closed. She thought about the woman in the white summer dress. The woman who had sat on a church step with a dirty little girl and promised her the world. She was the kindest person I ever met, Mr. Pellegrini. And yes, I think she was happy. I think she was happiest when she was helping someone who had nothing. Lorenzo nodded once. Then he turned back to the window and Emma quietly let herself out. She didn't remember walking back to her quarters. She didn't remember closing the door. She only remembered sitting on the edge of her bed, pressing both hands against her face and shaking so hard the bed frame rattled. She was going to lose Sophia. She was going to lose the little girl who had finally looked at a picture of a swan and nodded. And she had no one to blame but herself. 2 hours passed, then 3. The sky outside her window went from blue to orange to deep, heavy gray. At 6 o'clock, there was a knock at her door. Emma's heart stopped. Come in. It was Matteo. Miss Foster, Mr. Pellegrini requests your presence in the dining room. For what? For dinner. Emma stared at him. Dinner. Sophia's waiting for you. She won't eat without you. Emma couldn't breathe. Am I still employed? Matteo's face didn't change, but something in his old, tired eyes softened just a little. Mr. Pellegrini says the terms of your employment are under review. In the meantime, you are expected to perform your duties as before, starting with dinner. Oh, Emma whispered. Oh, thank God. Don't thank God yet, Miss Foster. Matteo's voice dropped. I have worked for Mr. Pellegrini for 22 years. I know what happens when he goes quiet. He is quiet right now. Do you understand me? Emma understood. Thank you, Matteo. He nodded once and left. Emma washed her face. She fixed her hair. She walked down that long marble hallway on legs that felt like water. And when she walked into the dining room, Sophia Pellegrini, 6 years old, bald, impossibly thin, slid off her chair and ran across the floor and threw her skinny arms around Emma's waist. Emma dropped to her knees and held her. She did not look at Lorenzo. She could not look at Lorenzo, but she could feel him sitting at the head of the long table watching her, watching them. Hi, baby, Emma whispered into Sophia's neck. Hi, sweet girl, I missed you. Sophia squeezed tighter, and then softer than a breath so quiet that Emma almost didn't hear it. Emma froze. Sophia's small voice, rusty from 11 months of silence, whispered it again into her shoulder. Emma's whole body went cold and then warm, and then cold again. She pulled back just enough to see Sophia's face. The little girl was staring up at her with enormous, tear-filled brown eyes. Did you just, Emma's voice broke. Did you just say my name, honey? Sophia nodded. She whispered it again. And then her small hand came up and touched Emma's cheek. Don't go. Emma started to cry. She couldn't help it. She pulled Sophia against her chest and rocked her and cried into the soft skin of the little girl's temple, and Sophia just clung to her, silent again, but silent in a completely different way than before. At the head of the table, Lorenzo Pellegrini had not moved. He was still holding his wine glass, but his knuckles were white around the stem, and his mouth had fallen open just slightly, and a single tear had tracked down his cheek without him even noticing. 11 months. His daughter had just spoken. She had not spoken to him. She had not spoken when her grandmother died. She had not spoken when her mother's coffin was lowered into the ground. She had not spoken when the doctors told her the word leukemia. But she had spoken to Emma. Lorenzo set his wine glass down very, very carefully. He stood up, and he walked out of the dining room without saying a single word. He made it exactly as far as his office before his legs gave out. He sat down in his chair. He braced both hands on the desk. He stared at nothing. And for the second time in his adult life, the first being the night Juliana died, Lorenzo Pellegrini put his face in his hands and wept. Back in the dining room, Emma ate dinner with Sophia, curled half asleep in her lap. Matteo stood quietly in the corner, eyes soft, and when he thought Emma wasn't looking, he pulled a handkerchief from his pocket and dabbed at his own face. That night, Emma tucked Sophia into bed. She read her 3 fairy tales. She sang her an old Italian lullaby her mother had sung to her a lifetime ago, a song she hadn't remembered she remembered until it came out of her mouth. Sophia's eyes fluttered shut halfway through, and by the time Emma whispered the last verse, the little girl was sound asleep. Emma sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, just watching her breathe. "I'm not going anywhere, baby," she whispered. I promise, I promise." She didn't hear the door open behind her. "Miss Foster." Emma turned. Lorenzo was standing in the doorway. His eyes were red-rimmed. His tie was loosened. In his hand, he held a small, battered wooden box. "Come with me, please." Emma followed him down the hallway past the marble staircase to a door she had never seen opened before. Lorenzo pulled a small key from his pocket. He unlocked it. Inside was a study, smaller than his office. Warmer. A fire had been lit, and above the fireplace hung a portrait. A portrait of a woman in a white summer dress. Emma stopped breathing. "My wife's private study," Lorenzo said. "I haven't opened this door in 3 years." "Sir." "Sit down, Miss Foster." Emma sat. Lorenzo set the wooden box on the table between them. He stared at it for a long moment. Then he pushed it toward her. "This was hers. I found it in her closet after she died. I never opened it. I couldn't. But today I opened it." Emma looked at the box. Her hands hovered over the lid. "Go on." She opened it. Inside were dozens of letters, hundreds maybe, all tied in neat little bundles with different colored ribbons. And on top, a small leather-bound notebook. Emma picked up the notebook. "Read it," Lorenzo said. She opened it. The first page in Juliana's beautiful looping handwriting read, "My girls, the ones I could not be a mother to, but who I will love for the rest of my life." Emma's eyes filled. She turned the page. The first name on the list was a girl named Isabella from Palermo. The second was a girl named Sophia from Genoa. The third was a girl named Maria from Bari. And the fourth was Emma, Napoli, seamstress's daughter, the one who wouldn't cry at the funeral. Emma pressed her hand over her mouth. "She wrote about you for 12 pages, Lorenzo said quietly, "more than any of the others. She wrote about the day she found you on the church steps. She wrote about the dress that didn't fit. She wrote about a promise she made to you that you would never end up in that orphanage in Rome." Emma was crying now. She couldn't stop. "And at the bottom of the last page about you," Lorenzo's voice cracked just barely, "she wrote, 'If anything ever happens to my Sophia, if I am not there to protect her, then please God, let my Emma find her. Because I know she will be the one who saves my baby girl.'" Emma looked up at him through her tears. Lorenzo was staring at her, and the coldness in his eyes was gone, completely gone. "My wife knew," he whispered. "She knew this would happen. She knew you would come. She wrote it down, Emma, 3 years before she died." "Mr. Pellegrini." "Lorenzo." "What?" "My name is Lorenzo. You don't need to call me Mr. Pellegrini anymore." Emma couldn't speak. She just sat there holding the notebook, tears rolling down her face. "I owe you an apology," Lorenzo said, "for this morning, for the photograph, for the way I spoke to you. I thought you were here to hurt me. I thought you were here because of something I had done. I have a lot of enemies, Miss Foster. I'm not a good man. I've done things my wife never knew about. And when I saw that photograph, I assumed the worst. I understand. Do you?" "Yes. In your world, in a world like yours, of course you assume the worst. Anyone would have." Lorenzo looked down at his hands. My daughter said your name tonight. I know. She hasn't said my name in almost a year, Emma. I thought she'd forgotten how to speak. I thought something had broken inside her that would never be fixed. He looked up. And then you walked into this house and in 24 days you did what I couldn't do in 11 months. Lorenzo, she hasn't forgotten you. She's just scared. She's lost her mother. She thinks if she loves anyone again, she'll lose them too. Then why did she speak to you? Emma hesitated. Because I'm just the help. She thinks she's allowed to love the help, because the help doesn't count. Lorenzo stared at her, and then he did something that almost stopped Emma's heart. He laughed. It was a short, broken, surprise laugh, but it was a laugh, and Emma had the strangest feeling, watching it happen, that it was the first laugh that had come out of him in a very, very long time. The help doesn't count, he repeated. God help me. Miss Foster, Emma, you may be the most infuriating woman I have ever met. Thank you, sir. Lorenzo, Ita. Thank you, Lorenzo. He shook his head slowly. Go to bed. It's been a long day. Tomorrow we'll talk about what happens next. Emma stood up. She handed him back the notebook. Keep it, Lorenzo said. She wrote it for you in a way. You should have it. I can't. Take it, Emma. She took it. She held it against her chest. Thank you, she whispered, for not throwing me out. Lorenzo looked at her for a long moment. Thank you for saving my daughter, he said quietly. She's not saved yet. No. His jaw tightened. She's not. Which is why I need you to stay, as long as it takes, whatever the cost. Emma nodded. She walked to the door. But before she could open it, Lorenzo spoke one more time. Emma. Yes. The cameras in Sophia's room. You knew about them, didn't you? She froze. I found them last week, she admitted. I haven't said anything because I understood. You're scared. She's your only child. You need to see her. I would have done the same. I'm going to take them out. You don't have to. Yes, I do. He paused. She deserves privacy, and so do you. I've been watching you for 3 weeks, Emma. I've seen every word you've whispered to my daughter. I've seen every lullaby, every prayer, every time you held her hand when she was too sick to lift her head. I have no right to that. It was wrong, and I'm going to fix it. Emma swallowed hard. Thank you. She let herself out. And in that small, warm study under the portrait of the woman in the white summer dress, Lorenzo Pellegrini sat down in his dead wife's chair, opened the leather notebook, and read for the first time in 3 years the words of the only person who had ever loved him. And somewhere far away, in a room in a city he did not know, another man was reading something too. A file with Emma Foster's name on it. A file that had just been delivered to his desk in a plain manila envelope with no return address. The man smiled, and he picked up his phone. The phone call that changed everything came at 4:17 a.m. Lorenzo was still awake. He hadn't slept. He was sitting in his dead wife's study, Juliana's leather notebook open in his lap, reading her handwriting for the third time when his private cell phone buzzed against the wooden table. He picked it up. What, boss? The voice on the other end was Vinny, his longest-serving man, the one who had been with him since Naples. We have a problem. At 4 a.m, you have a problem. Vinny, unless somebody is dead, somebody's about to be. Lorenzo sat up. Who? The nurse? Emma. Somebody just pulled her file, boss. Somebody outside the family. And I mean the whole file, her real name, the Boston address, the immigration papers, everything Juliana did for her 20 years ago. Lorenzo felt the blood drain from his face. Who pulled it? I'm still tracking it. But boss, whoever it is, they paid a lot of money to get it fast. This wasn't a background check. This was a hit package. Lorenzo closed his eyes. How long do we have? Maybe 24 hours, maybe less. Get here. Now, bring Rico and Tommaso. And Vinny. Yeah. Nobody enters this property without my direct approval. Nobody. Not deliveries, not the gardener, not Sophia's doctor. Nobody. Understood, boss. Lorenzo hung up the phone. He sat there in the dark for a long moment staring at Juliana's notebook, at the 12 pages she had written about a little girl in Naples, at the prayer she had made 3 years before she died. Let my Emma find her. Let her be the one who saves my baby girl. Juliana, he whispered, what did you leave behind? What did you do that I don't know about? He stood up. He walked down the long marble hallway. He didn't stop outside Emma's room. He stopped outside Sophia's. He opened the door very quietly. Emma was asleep in the chair by Sophia's bed. She was still in her clothes from the day before. The leather notebook was in her lap. Her head had fallen sideways against the cushion, and her auburn hair had come loose from its bun and spilled over her shoulder. Sophia, in the bed beside her, was sleeping with one small hand wrapped around two of Emma's fingers. Lorenzo stood in the doorway and watched them for a long, long moment. His chest felt like it had been split open with a knife. He had spent 3 years running from this room, 3 years avoiding his own daughter, 3 years watching her on monitors because he could not stand to watch her in person, because every time he looked at Sophia's face, he saw Juliana, and every time he saw Juliana, he remembered that she was gone and that he had not saved her. And now this woman, this stranger, his wife had saved as a child, had walked into his house and in less than a month had done what he had been too broken to do. She had loved his daughter back to life, and somebody out there was about to try to take her away. Lorenzo walked quietly to the chair. He crouched down. He touched Emma's shoulder. Emma. She didn't wake. Emma, wake up. Her eyes fluttered open. For a second, she looked confused, disoriented. Then she saw him and jolted upright. Sir Lorenzo, is everything okay? Is Sophia? Sophia's fine, but I need you to come with me. Now. What's wrong? Come with me, quietly. Emma gently unwound Sophia's fingers from her own. The little girl made a soft sound in her sleep and rolled toward the warm spot Emma had just left. Emma stroked her bald head, once whispered, "Shh, baby. I'll be right back," and followed Lorenzo out of the room. He led her back to Juliana's study. He closed the door. He turned the lock. "You're scaring me," Emma said. "I know, I'm sorry. Sit down." She sat. "Emma, I need you to tell me something, and I need you to tell me the truth. Has anyone from your past contacted you in the last 6 months?" "What?" "Anyone. An old employer, a family member, someone from Boston, someone from Naples, anyone at all?" "No, no one." Emma shook her head. I don't have family, Lorenzo. You know that. The family who adopted me, they passed years ago. I have a couple of friends from nursing school, but nobody I've been close to in a long time. Why? What's going on?" Lorenzo sat down across from her. He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "Somebody pulled your file tonight. Your real file. The one with your real name on it. The one with everything Juliana did for you 23 years ago." Emma went pale. What do you mean pulled? I mean, somebody paid a lot of money to someone with access to sealed immigration records. Somebody who was looking for you specifically. And whoever they are, they have the resources to hurt you, Emma. Quickly, quietly, without leaving a trace. I don't understand. Who would want to hurt me? I'm nobody. I'm a pediatric nurse from Boston. It's not about you. Lorenzo's jaw tightened. It's about my wife. Emma stared at him. Juliana had enemies, Emma. Enemies I didn't know about until after she died. When I started going through her things, her accounts, her phone records, she was doing something for a long time that I had no idea about. And I think whoever killed her, the word came out of Emma's mouth like a punch. Lorenzo went very still. You said she died in a car accident. That's what the police report says. Lorenzo. I don't know, Emma. I've never known. The brakes failed on a perfectly maintained car on a dry road. No other vehicles involved. The investigation was closed in 96 hours. I have spent 3 years trying to prove it was something else, and I have never been able to. But now, he looked up at her. Now somebody is looking for you, the daughter she saved, the little girl who shouldn't exist on paper. And I don't believe in coincidences, Emma. Not in my world, not ever. Emma felt like she was going to be sick. Oh my God. Listen to me. Listen. I am not going to let anything happen to you. Do you hear me? Not one hair on your head, but I need you to do exactly what I say for the next few days. Can you do that? Yes, of course. You're not leaving this estate, not for any reason, not to get coffee, not to run errands, not to go to your apartment. Anything you need, my people will get. Do you understand? I understand. You don't open any package you haven't inspected. You don't answer any phone call from a number you don't know. You stay with Sophia during the day, and in your own quarters at night, and my men will be posted outside both doors 24 hours. Lorenzo and Emma, his voice dropped. If anything happens to me, you take Sophia and you run. Vinny will know where to take you. He'll have papers ready. Don't argue, just go. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Nothing is going to happen to you. You don't know that. Nothing is going to happen to you, Lorenzo, because Sophia needs you. She needs both of us. Do you understand that she's starting to come back? She's starting to come out. And if you... Emma's voice cracked. If you give up on her, I swear to God, I will never forgive you. Lorenzo stared at her, and for the second time that night, something in his face cracked open. I'm not going to give up on her, Emma. Good. But promise me, if it comes to it, promise me you'll take her. Emma was crying now. She nodded. I promise. Lorenzo reached across the table and took her hand. It was the first time he had ever touched her. His hand was warm, steady, much bigger than hers. And when his fingers closed around her palm, Emma felt something pass between them that she had no name for. Something old, something sacred. Something that had been set in motion 23 years ago on a church step in Naples and had finally arrived at its destination. Thank you, Lorenzo said quietly, for loving my daughter. I didn't have a choice, Emma whispered. From the first second I walked into that room, I didn't have a choice. They sat there holding hands across the table until the first gray light of morning started creeping under the study door. At 6:30, there was a soft knock. Come. Matteo opened the door. Sir, Vinny is here. Send him up. Emma pulled her hand back. She wiped her cheeks. I should go check on Sophia. Stay close to the house today. Please. I will. She stood up to leave, but at the door she hesitated. Lorenzo. Yes. Whoever is coming for me, if it's connected to Juliana, we need to know what she was doing. Don't we? If we want to get ahead of this. Lorenzo looked at her. Yes. Then I want to help. Whatever it is, I want to help. Emma, you are not a soldier. No, I'm a nurse. A nurse your wife saved from an orphanage. A nurse your daughter just started talking to after 11 months of silence. And you can call me a lot of things, Lorenzo Pellegrini, but you will not call me helpless. Not in this house. Not about Juliana. He looked at her for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. All right. I'll tell you everything I know. Tonight. After Sophia's asleep. We'll go through Juliana's things together. Her notebook, her letters, everything in that box. If there's something in there, something about what she was really doing, we'll find it. Together. Go. Take care of my daughter. Emma went. And the day that followed passed in a strange, suspended quiet. Emma bathed Sophia, fed her breakfast, read her fairy tales. Sophia didn't speak again, but she held Emma's hand the entire morning. When the doctor came at noon to check her white blood cell count, Sophia actually let him examine her without crawling into Emma's lap. A small miracle, Emma thought. Another inch back from the silence. At 3 in the afternoon, Emma looked up from the book she was reading and saw Sophia watching her with a strange, thoughtful expression. What is it, baby? Sophia opened her mouth. Yes, sweetheart. Is he my daddy? Is he so? Emma felt her heart crack. Yes, baby. He's very sad. Why? Because he misses your mommy and because he's afraid of losing you too. Sophia was quiet for a long time. Then she said very softly, I want to see him. Emma had to press her hand over her mouth to keep from sobbing. You want to see your daddy? Sophia nodded. Okay, sweet girl. Okay, I'll get him. Emma stood up. She walked out of the room on shaking legs. She walked down the hallway. She knocked on the door of Lorenzo's office. Come. She pushed open the door. Lorenzo was standing with Vinny, a broad-shouldered man with a tattoo crawling up his neck, and 2 other men she didn't recognize. The moment she walked in, all 4 of them went silent. Lorenzo. Emma, is everything okay? Sophia wants to see you. Lorenzo's face did something complicated. What did you say? She said she wants to see her daddy. For a second, Lorenzo didn't move. Then he was moving fast past Emma down the hallway, not running, but walking so quickly Emma had to jog to keep up. He stopped at Sophia's door. He stood there for a full 10 seconds, just breathing. Lorenzo, Emma whispered. Go. What if she doesn't? She asked for you. Go. He opened the door. Sophia was sitting up in bed, the red fairy tale book clutched to her chest. When she saw him, her enormous brown eyes filled with tears. Daddy, she whispered. Lorenzo made a sound Emma had never heard a man make before. He crossed the room in 3 strides, dropped to his knees beside the bed, and pulled his daughter into his arms, and he held her. He held her like a drowning man holds driftwood, like a condemned man holds a pardon, like a father who has spent 11 months watching his little girl disappear into silence and has finally heard her say his name. Baby, he whispered into her bald head. Oh, baby. Oh, my baby girl. I'm here. Daddy's here. Sophia sobbed into his shoulder. Emma stood in the doorway with tears pouring down her face and watched a father and daughter find each other again after almost a year lost in the dark. She quietly closed the door to give them privacy. And she walked back to her room, sat on the edge of her bed and wept. Wept for Juliana, who was not here to see it, and for the little girl who had found her voice, and for the hard, cold man who had just fallen apart in his daughter's arms, and for herself because somewhere out there, a dangerous person had her name on a file, and she did not know why. That evening after Sophia was asleep, her father had read her 3 stories himself, had tucked her in, himself had sung her an off-key Italian lullaby that made Emma smile through her tears. From the doorway, Lorenzo found Emma back in Juliana's study. She's out. Good. She asked for you before she went to sleep. She said, make sure Em comes back tomorrow. Emma laughed softly. I'll be here. He sat down across from her. He had brought the wooden box with him. He set it on the table. Are you ready? Yes. They opened the letters one by one. Most of them were love letters from Lorenzo himself. Letters Juliana had kept for years. Letters that made him have to put his hand over his eyes sometimes. But underneath those, at the very bottom of the box, was a bundle tied with black ribbon. Lorenzo untied it, and as he started reading the first letter, his face changed. Emma. What? These letters, they're addressed to someone named D. D. Just D, a single letter. The first one is dated 1997, the year she married me. He read it quickly, then the second, then the third. Oh God. What, Lorenzo? What is it? Emma, my wife was running a network. A network. Look. He passed her the letter. These aren't love letters. These are coded reports, dates, cities, names, payment amounts. Emma, she wasn't just helping orphan girls. She was moving them. She was moving women. Out of Italy, away from men, away from dangerous men. Emma's breath caught. How many? I don't know, dozens, maybe more. Lorenzo's hands were shaking. She was running a kind of underground railroad for 20 years, right under my nose. And you never knew. I never knew. Who is D? Lorenzo kept reading. Then his face went white. Oh no. Lorenzo, D is Don Antonio D'Amato. Who is that? Lorenzo looked up at her. His eyes were the coldest Emma had ever seen them. He's the man who would have taken over Juliana's operation after her death. The man who is officially one of my oldest friends. The man who carried my wife's casket at her funeral. The man I trusted with my life for 22 years. Oh my God. Emma. Lorenzo set the letter down very carefully. I think I know who pulled your file. You think it was him? I think he has been running her network since she died. I think he has been using her name, her contacts, her girls to do something she would never have approved of. And I think he must have found out you were here. And he's coming for you because you are the last living person who knew what she was really doing. Because if you talk, if you remember anything, it falls apart. Emma felt the room spin. Lorenzo, what was she doing that he was using for something else? Lorenzo was reading the last letter now. His face was getting paler with every line. Lorenzo, talk to me. What's in the letter? He looked up. The girls, Emma, the girls she was saving. He's been selling them. Emma's stomach dropped. What? For 3 years since she died, every girl who was supposed to be smuggled out, he's been moving them, but not to safety, to buyers, across borders. He's been running her operation, my wife's operation, as a trafficking ring. Oh my God. And she was about to stop him. Emma stared at him. What? Lorenzo slid the last letter across the table to her. 3 weeks before she died, he said quietly, she wrote him this letter, telling him she was shutting everything down, telling him she had proof, telling him she was going to the American consulate the following Monday. Emma's eyes found the bottom of the letter. The last line in Juliana's beautiful handwriting, "If you so much as look at another one of my girls, Antonio, I will bury you. I swear it on my daughter's life." Emma looked up. Lorenzo, he killed her, didn't he? He killed her to stop her. Yes. And now? Now he knows you're here, and he knows you're one of her girls, and he is coming for the last witness his dead boss ever had. A phone buzzed on the table between them. Lorenzo picked it up. His eyes scanned the screen. Then he set the phone down very slowly, very carefully, and when he looked up at Emma, his face was so calm it was terrifying. Emma, what? Antonio just landed in the country 2 hours ago. He's an hour and 20 minutes from this house. Emma couldn't breathe. Lorenzo, he's coming tonight. Emma couldn't speak. She just stared at Lorenzo across that small wooden table at the phone in his hand, at the last letter his dead wife had ever written, and the world seemed to close in around her like a fist. How fast can he get here? 80 minutes, maybe 70 if he has a good driver. Lorenzo, listen to me. He was already standing up. I need you to go to Sophia's room. Right now. You wake her up gently. You pack a small bag, just warm clothes, her medications, the red book. That's it. Vinny will meet you at the back staircase in 15 minutes. He will drive you to a safe house I keep outside the city. Do you hear me? Lorenzo, I'm not leaving you. Emma, I said I'm not leaving you. This is not a negotiation. It is absolutely a negotiation. Emma stood up too. Her hands were shaking, but her voice wasn't. If he's coming for me, then running doesn't solve anything. He'll just follow. He has resources. He has people. You said so yourself. Where am I going to hide from a man like that, Lorenzo? In a cabin, in a motel, for how long? The rest of my life. Emma, you don't understand what this man is capable of. Then make me understand. He will walk into a children's hospital and put a bullet in a nurse if it gets him what he wants. He has done it before. I have seen him do it before. Emma's stomach lurched, but she didn't back down. Then he has to be stopped, Lorenzo. Tonight, not in a week, not after he disappears for 6 months and comes back when we've stopped watching. Tonight. Emma, I have Juliana's letters. I have the names of the girls. I have the proof of what he's been doing. You said it yourself. She was going to the American consulate on a Monday morning and he killed her to stop her. What if we finish what she started? What if I go to the consulate? What if I bring every letter in that box with me and hand them over? Lorenzo stared at her. You'd be signing your own death warrant. No. Emma shook her head. I'd be signing his. Because the second those letters are in official hands, the second the FBI knows what he's been running, he is a dead man, Lorenzo, whether he kills me or not. And if he kills you first, then he kills me first. And you take those letters and you take my statement and you bury him anyway. For your wife, for your daughter, for every girl he's sold in the last 3 years. Promise me. Lorenzo looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. You are the most stubborn woman I have ever met in my life. I know. Juliana would have loved you. She did, Emil whispered. She already did. For a long moment, Lorenzo just stood there, breathing hard. Then he moved. He walked around the table. He took Emma's face in both of his hands, and he pressed his forehead against hers, just pressed it there, eyes closed for 3 long seconds. You don't die tonight, do you hear me? I hear you, Tamia. Say it. I don't die tonight. Good. He let go. He grabbed the phone off the table. He dialed. Vinny, change of plan. Get Rico, Tommaso, Paolo, and the 2 new guys. Full loadout. I want them at every entrance in 10 minutes. I want the gate closed. I want the tunnel cleared. I want Matteo to take Sophia down to the wine cellar. No, don't argue with me. The cellar, the back one behind the second door, and I want him armed. Yes, Matteo. He used to be a paratrooper, Vinny. He's forgotten more than you'll ever know. Now move. He hung up. What do I do? Emma asked. You go to my daughter, you get her to Matteo, and then you come back here, And you and I, we sit down at this table and we organize every single letter in that box by date, and we have it ready to hand to the federal agent I'm about to call. Because when this is over, however it ends tonight, those letters are going to the United States government before sunrise. I swear it to you. I'll get Sophia. Emma. Yes. I'm sorry. For what? For dragging you into this. For not protecting you from the moment you walked into this house. Emma looked up at him, and somehow in the middle of the most terrifying night of her life, she found a small, sad smile. Lorenzo, she said softly, I walked into this house 23 years ago, on a church step in Naples. I've just been waiting for the rest of it to catch up. Then she turned and ran. Sophia was already half awake when Emma reached her room. The little girl seemed to have a sixth sense for when something was wrong. She sat up as Emma came through the door, and her eyes went huge. Em, where's Daddy? Daddy's fine, sweetheart. Daddy's right downstairs, but we need to play a very special game tonight. Okay? What game? The quiet game. With Matteo. Remember Matteo? The nice man with the gray hair. Sophia nodded slowly. Matteo's going to take you down to a special room, a secret room just for princesses, and you're going to stay there with him for a little while. And when Daddy and I say it's okay to come out, we'll come get you, and we'll have ice cream. Okay. Are you coming? I'm coming soon, baby. Very soon. But first, Daddy and I have to finish something very important. Something your mommy started a long time ago. Sophia's small hand reached up and touched Emma's face. Is it a bad man? Emma went very still. What did you say, honey? Mommy told me, Sophia whispered, before she went to heaven. She told me there was a bad man. She told me if he ever came, I should hide with Matteo. She told me Emma's eyes filled with tears. Oh, baby. Is he here? He's coming, sweet girl, but he's not going to find you. Because your mommy was right, Matteo is going to keep you safe. And your daddy and I are going to make sure he never, ever hurts anyone again. Do you believe me? Sophia nodded. Emma pulled her close. She pressed her lips against the soft, bald top of her head. I love you, Sophia Pellegrini. I love you, Em. 3 words that should not have been possible from this child 2 months ago. And Emma almost broke right there on the spot, but she held it together because there was no time. There was no time, and she grabbed the small bag of medications and the red fairy tale book and the warm wool sweater, and she carried Sophia down the back staircase in her own arms, the little girl's face pressed into her neck, and she did not let herself cry until she had handed her over to Matteo at the door of the wine cellar. Take care of her, Matteo. With my life, Miss Foster. Don't open this door for anyone but Lorenzo or me, not even Vinny. Do you understand? Understood. She kissed Sophia one more time. Sophia kissed her back. Then Emma turned and ran back up the stairs. The next 40 minutes were the longest of her life. Lorenzo's men moved through the house like water, silent, fast disappearing into positions she couldn't see. Vinny gave her a small black radio and a whispered instruction. If you hear me say Sparrow, you drop whatever you're holding and you run for the panic room. Understood, Miss Foster. Understood. Boss thinks very highly of you. He thinks highly of his daughter. I come with her. Vinny almost smiled. Miss Foster, after tonight, I don't think that's true anymore. Just an observation. He walked away before she could respond. Back in Juliana's study, Emma sat with Lorenzo, and they sorted letters by date, 1997, 1999, 2001, their hands working together like they had been doing this for years. Lorenzo was on the phone at the same time speaking in short clipped sentences to a man named Agent Reyes at the FBI field office in Philadelphia. Emma heard him say her name. She heard him say Juliana's name. She heard him say Don Antonio D'Amato. And she heard the pause on the other end of the line that told her the name meant something to the people who mattered. At 5:43 in the morning, Lorenzo's phone buzzed again. He read the screen. He looked up. He's at the gate. Emma's heart stopped. Already, he brought 6 men. 6. Emma listened to me very carefully. Lorenzo stood up. He took her by the shoulders. He is going to come into this house smiling. He is going to call me brother. He is going to hug me, and he is going to ask after my daughter, and he is going to sit down at my kitchen table like he has done 100 times before. And the entire time, Emma, he is going to be waiting for his men to find you. Where am I going to be? You're going to be right here. Lorenzo, I know. I know what I said. But I need you to trust me. I need him to see you. I need him to believe he has won. I need him to relax because the second he relaxes, I have him. Agent Reyes is 11 minutes out. We need to keep Antonio in this house calm, comfortable, unsuspecting for 11 minutes. Can you do that? Yes. Emma. Yes, Lorenzo. You do not leave my side, not for 1 second, not to get water, not to use the bathroom. You stay within arm's reach of me at all times. Because if you wander off, if one of his men corners you alone for even 30 seconds, this ends very badly. Do you understand? I understand. Then let's go. They walked down the marble hallway together and Emma's hand found his and neither of them said anything, but his fingers closed around hers and did not let go. Don Antonio D'Amato turned out to be a small, neat, handsome man in his early 60s with silver hair and warm brown eyes and the kind of smile that made you want to like him instantly. Lorenzo, he opened his arms as they came into the parlor. My brother, it has been too long. Too long, Lorenzo embraced him. They kissed each other's cheeks. Emma watched it happen and felt her stomach turn. Antonio, unexpected pleasure. What brings you to the States? Business, my friend. Always business. But I was in New York and I thought, how can I be this close and not come and see my Lorenzo? And this, his warm brown eyes turned to Emma. This must be the famous Miss Foster I have heard so much about. Emma's blood turned to ice. Antonio has heard of you? Lorenzo asked lightly. The whole family has heard, brother. Word travels. A woman who has made Sophia speak again in this community, that is not a small thing. He took Emma's hand. He kissed the back of it. His lips were cool and dry. You are a miracle worker, Miss Foster. Truly, we are all in your debt. That's very kind of you, Emma said. Her voice didn't shake. She didn't know how. Please sit. Tell me about her. Tell me about little Sophia. Emma sat. Lorenzo sat beside her. And for the next 9 minutes, 9 of the longest minutes of Emma Foster's life, she made polite, pleasant conversation with the man who had murdered Juliana Pellegrini. She talked about Sophia's appetite. She talked about the first word. She talked about the red fairy tale book. Antonio listened with tears in his eyes and a hand pressed against his chest, and he told her at Juliana may she rest in peace, may the angels guard her, would have been so proud of her baby girl. That Juliana had loved children. That Juliana had been the heart of their whole family. In fact, he said, wiping his eyes, I find myself thinking of her more and more as I get older. I find myself wishing I had told her things I never told her. Do you ever feel that, Miss Foster? That there are things you should have said to someone and now you cannot? Yes, Emma said quietly, all the time. She was a good woman. She was the best woman I ever knew, Mr. D'Amato. His warm brown eyes went very still. Just for a second. Just for one tiny, terrible second, the mask slipped, and Emma saw underneath the thing that had put brakes on a car on a dry road 3 years ago. The thing that had ordered a woman dead and then carried her casket. Then it was gone and he was smiling again. You knew her. A long time ago, Emma said lightly. When I was a little girl, in Italy, she was very kind to my mother. How remarkable. Small world. Indeed. Lorenzo's phone buzzed against the table. He glanced down. He didn't react. He looked up at Antonio and smiled. Antonio, forgive me. A business call? 2 minutes. Of course, brother. Lorenzo stepped into the hall. Emma heard him murmur 3 words into the phone. Send them in. Then he came back. He sat down. He put his hand on Emma's knee under the table very gently and squeezed. Antonio, I have to tell you something. Anything, brother. I know. The small man's smile didn't move, but something behind his eyes did. You know what? I know about the girls. A long silence. Then Antonio laughed, a warm, bewildered, affectionate laugh. Lorenzo, my friend, I have no idea what you are. I know about the letters, Antonio. I know about Juliana's network. I know what you have been doing with it since she died. And I know what you did to her on the 14th of March 3 years ago on Route 29 outside Bergamo. Antonio stopped laughing. Lorenzo, don't. Lorenzo, I don't know who has been talking to you, but she wrote you a letter, Antonio, 3 weeks before she died. She told you she was shutting it down. She told you she was going to the consulate. She told you that if you looked at one more girl, she would bury you. I have the letter, Antonio. I have all of them. Emma watched the small, handsome man go perfectly, utterly still. I see. The FBI is on their way, Antonio. Are they? 7 minutes out, maybe less. Lorenzo? Antonio's voice was soft now. Very soft. Do you know how many men I brought with me tonight? 6. 6 men who are, as we speak, in various positions around this house, waiting for a signal I was going to give them in about 4 minutes. Lorenzo, brother, I did not come here to talk. I came here to clean up a very small loose end. His warm brown eyes flicked to Emma. And now you have made that loose end much larger, which is unfortunate for both of us. Your 6 men are in custody, Antonio. Silence. What? My people picked them up 20 minutes ago, before you ever reached the house. One of them rolled immediately, by the way. Gave us your contact inside the immigration office. Gave us the names of the 4 girls you moved last month. Gave us everything. Antonio's face had gone white. You're lying. I'm not. Antonio's hand moved fast toward the inside of his jacket. It never got there, because Vinny was standing behind him with the barrel of a gun pressed against the base of his skull before his fingers even reached the lapel. Hi, Don Antonio, Vinny said pleasantly. Hands where I can see them. Antonio's hands came up very slowly. Lorenzo, brother, please. You carried her casket, Antonio. Lorenzo. You carried my wife's casket at her funeral, and you knew the whole time you knew what you had done to her. Lorenzo, I can explain. There is no explanation. There is only what happens next, which is that you are going to sit in that chair very quietly for the next 4 minutes. And when the FBI walks through that door, you are going to stand up and you are going to let them put handcuffs on you, and you are going to go with them. And if you so much as look at Miss Foster one more time, Vinny is going to pull that trigger. Do you understand me? Antonio understood. He sat. For 3.5 long minutes, nobody in that room spoke. Emma's hand found Lorenzo's under the table again. His fingers were cold but steady. She could hear her own heart in her ears. At exactly 6:07 a.m., there was a knock at the front door. Matteo, who had emerged from the wine cellar with Sophia asleep in his arms and handed her to one of the housekeepers 3 minutes earlier, walked to the door. He opened it. Agent Maria Reyes of the FBI walked into the Pellegrini estate at the head of 9 armed federal agents with a warrant in her hand and the full weight of the United States government behind her. Antonio D'Amato stood up from his chair. He looked at Lorenzo. He looked at Emma. And for one long second, Emma saw something she had not expected in his warm brown eyes, a flicker of something almost like relief. Like a man who had been carrying something heavy for a very long time and was finally going to put it down. She was right, you know, he said quietly. Juliana, about me, about what I would become if she ever stopped watching. You killed her, Antonio. I know. Say it. I killed her, Lorenzo. I killed your wife. Lorenzo's eyes closed. Agent Reyes stepped forward. Antonio D'Amato, you are under arrest for the trafficking of persons, conspiracy to commit murder, and the murder of Juliana Pellegrini. You have the right to remain silent. Emma didn't hear the rest. She was standing up. She was walking out of the room. She was walking down the marble hallway. She was pushing open the door to the small den at the end of the hall, where the housekeeper had laid a still sleeping Sophia on the sofa, and she was kneeling down, and she was taking the little girl's tiny hand, and she was pressing her face into the small warm palm and sobbing. For Juliana, for Sophia, for herself. For the 23 years she had been running from a past she had not understood, and for the single dawn that had just finally set her free. Lorenzo found her there 10 minutes later. He knelt down beside her. He put his arm around her shoulders. He pulled her against him, and Emma let herself collapse against his chest. And Lorenzo Pellegrini, the Mafia boss, who had not cried in front of another human being in 30 years, rested his chin on the top of her head and held her while she fell apart. It's over, he whispered. It's over. She's safe now. You're safe now. Lorenzo, he said. Yes. I don't know what happens next. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said very softly, neither do I, Emma. But whatever it is, I'd like to find out together. Emma didn't answer him right away. She couldn't. Her face was still pressed against Lorenzo's chest. Her fingers were still tangled in the lapel of his suit, and for the first time in more hours than she could count, her body was letting go of something she hadn't even realized she'd been holding. So she just nodded, once, against his shirt. "Together," she whispered. And that single word seemed to settle something in the hallway between them. They stayed there a long time, the three of them. Emma, Lorenzo, and Sophia sleeping between them on the small sofa while the sun slowly came up outside and federal agents moved through the Pellegrini estate like quiet tide. Emma heard voices in the kitchen. Radios. The measured cadence of Agent Reyes speaking to one of her men. Somewhere down the hall, Antonio D'Amato was being walked out in handcuffs. Emma didn't watch. She didn't want to. At some point, Sophia stirred. Right here, baby." "Did the bad man go away?" Lorenzo answered before Emma could. "He's gone, sweetheart. He's gone for good. He's never coming back." Sophia's eyes fluttered open. She looked up at her father. She looked up at Emma. And then in a small voice still rusty from all those silent months, she said the thing that broke both of them wide open. "Mommy sent you." Emma and Lorenzo went still. "What did you say, baby mom?" "Mommy sent you, Em. Mommy sent you to come find me." Emma started crying. She couldn't help it. She pulled Sophia into her lap and held her, and Lorenzo wrapped his arms around both of them, and for a blind moment the only sound in that small den was Emma's quiet weeping and Sophia's soft, steady breathing, and somewhere very far away the distant sound of a door closing as the last federal vehicle left the property. "Daddy," Sophia said sleepily, "can Em stay?" Lorenzo looked over his daughter's bald head at Emma. "Yes, baby," he said quietly. "Em can stay, as long as she wants." The weeks that followed passed in a strange, dreamlike haze. Emma kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Antonio's men to come back for someone else from Juliana's old network to surface for some new catastrophe to crash through the doors of the Pellegrini estate. But none of it happened. Agent Reyes called twice a week with updates. Antonio had confessed. 3 of his lieutenants had flipped. The girls he had been moving, 47 of them across 4 countries, were being located and brought home. Juliana's notebook, Juliana's letters, Juliana's 20-year Underground Railroad were being used to dismantle piece by piece the very thing Antonio had twisted her work into. Emma found herself thinking in those quiet weeks about the woman on the church steps. The woman in the white summer dress. Juliana had not lived to see the end of her own war, but she had somehow from beyond the grave won it, and Sophia day by day was coming back to life. She spoke more. She ate more. Her color started to return. The doctor came every Tuesday now, and every Tuesday his face got a little less worried. On the 4th Tuesday, he sat down across from Lorenzo in the study and said the words Lorenzo had been praying for 14 months. "Her numbers are good, Mr. Pellegrini. Her numbers are very good." "How good, doctor?" "She's responding to the treatment in a way I did not expect." "I'm not going to promise you anything, not yet, but if this continues, we may be talking about remission by Christmas." Lorenzo did not cry in front of the doctor. He waited until the doctor had left. Then he walked down the hallway, past the parlor, past the den, to the small pink bedroom and on the 2nd floor where Emma was reading Sophia a story about a girl who could talk to swans. And he stood in the doorway, and Emma looked up at him, and she toward his face, and she knew. She set the book down very carefully. "Sophia, honey, I'm going to go talk to Daddy for a minute, okay? Finish this page with me in your head. I'll be right back." Sophia nodded solemnly. Emma followed Lorenzo into the hallway. He pulled her against him and pressed his face into her hair and made a sound that was half laugh and half sob. "She's going to be okay, Emma. She's going to be okay. Oh, Lorenzo. She's going to be okay. I know, honey, I know." It was the first time she had called him honey. It was the first time either of them had noticed that the space between Emma Foster and Lorenzo Pellegrini had somewhere in the last month quietly closed. Neither of them acknowledged it out loud. Not that day, not the next day, not for 3 weeks. They were both in their own ways careful people. Emma because she had spent her whole life preparing to lose things. Lorenzo because he had spent the last 3 years pretending he had already lost everything worth losing. Neither of them knew how to walk straight into a thing they wanted, so they walked around it in circles. Lorenzo started eating breakfast with Emma and Sophia every morning. He started reading bedtime stories. He started coming home earlier. He disbanded half his legitimate business operations, the ones he said were no longer necessary, and quietly began donating enormous sums of money to a foundation he had set up in Juliana's name. A foundation that helped girls. Italian girls. Girls with no families. Girls like the one Juliana had saved on a church step in Naples 23 years ago. Emma found out about the foundation by accident. She was looking for a pen in Lorenzo's study, and she found the paperwork in a drawer. She stood there for a long time holding it. Then she walked down the hallway and she opened the door to his bedroom. We had never been in his bedroom before. And she walked up to him where he was sitting on the edge of his bed, unbuttoning his cuffs at the end of a long day. And she sat down beside him and she said, "Lorenzo." "Yes, the foundation." He didn't look at her. "You weren't supposed to find that." "Why not?" "Because." He was quiet for a long moment. "Because my wife did this work without ever asking for credit, without ever telling me, without ever asking me for a dime. And for 22 years, I sat across the breakfast table from her, and I did not see her. I did not see what she was. I want to finish what she started, but I don't want anyone clapping for me while I do it. You understand?" Emma understood. She reached over and took his hand. "She'd be proud of you, Lorenzo. She'd be proud of you. She'd be proud of us both." They sat there on the edge of his bed, holding hands, not looking at each other. And Emma thought she was not sure she could not be sure, but she thought that this was the moment. That this was the moment he was going to say the thing he had been not saying for 3 weeks. He didn't say it. He squeezed her hand and he stood up and he said, "It's late. You should get some sleep. Sophia has physical therapy in the morning." Emma stood up too. "Good night, Lorenzo." "Good night, Emma." She was at the door when his voice stopped her. "Emma." "Yes." "Don't go back to Boston." She turned. He was still standing by the bed, his cuffs still half unbuttoned, looking at her with an expression she had never quite seen before, vulnerable, unguarded, completely unarmored. "What?" "Your lease. I know it's up in 3 weeks. I know I know he mentioned you asked him about moving trucks. Don't go back to Boston. Stay." "Lorenzo, I'm not proposing anything. I'm not asking anything. I don't want you to go. Sophia doesn't want you to go, and I don't want you to go, that's all." Emma stood in the doorway for a long moment. "I'll think about it," she said softly, and she left. But she didn't go to her room. She went down the marble stairs and down the long hallway and into Juliana's small study, which had become over the last month a kind of second home for her. She sat down in Juliana's chair. She looked up at the portrait above the fireplace, and she said out loud to a woman who could not answer her, "Juliana, I don't know what to do." The woman in the white summer dress did not answer. But as Emma sat there staring up at the portrait, her eyes drifted down to the small side table where she had been keeping Juliana's leather notebook. She reached over, she picked it up, and because she had not done this before, because she had read the 12 pages about herself a dozen times but had not read any further, she opened it to the back. There were pages she had never seen. Her breath caught. The very last page was dated 6 weeks before Juliana's death. And it was not about any of the girls. It was not in the careful coded language of Juliana's reports. It was in her personal handwriting, her looping, feminine, unmistakable hand. "Lorenzo will not be able to raise Sophia alone. I see it now. I have always seen it, but I see it more clearly now that I know what is coming. He loves us. He loves us with his whole heart. But he does not know how to let himself be loved back. If something happens to me, and I feel these last weeks that may I want someone to find him, someone good, someone patient, someone who will see the man underneath the armor. I want her to be kind. I want her to be stubborn. I want her to love my daughter the way I would love her. I don't know who she is, but I pray for her tonight, whoever she is, wherever she is. May she find him. May she stay." Emma pressed her hand over her mouth. She read it again, then a third time, and then very slowly she stood up and she walked back down the hallway and back up the marble staircase, and she pushed open the door to Lorenzo's bedroom without knocking, and she walked across the carpet in her bare feet, and she sat down beside him, where he was sitting on the edge of his bed with his head in his hands, and she held out the open notebook. "Read this." "Emma." "Just read it, Lorenzo." He took the notebook. He read it. She watched his face. She watched his shoulders start to shake. She watched him press the heel of his hand against his eyes and make a sound that was not quite a word. "Oh, Juliana," he whispered. "Oh, my girl, my girl." Emma took his hand. She knew Lorenzo. She knew this was going to happen. She prayed for me before she ever knew who I was. And maybe I prayed for you too without knowing it. Because I have been alone my whole life. And I walked into this house 4 months ago and I stopped being alone the moment I saw your daughter's face. And then I stopped being alone a second time the moment I saw yours. Lorenzo looked up. His dark eyes were wet. "Emma, yes, I want you to stay. I know. I want more than that. I know. I want to build something with you. I want to raise my daughter with you. I want to wake up every morning for the rest of my life and know that you are in the room next door or in this room." He stopped. He swallowed. "I am not a good man, Emma. I have done things you should hate me for. I do not deserve you. I know I do not deserve you, but I am asking anyway. Because my wife prayed for you, and you came, and I am not going to let you walk back out of this house and pretend that wasn't a miracle." Emma was crying now. She didn't know when it had started. "Lorenzo, please don't say no." "Lorenzo, I was never going to say no." He looked at her. "What? I was never going to say no, you beautiful, stubborn fool." And then he was laughing, and she was laughing, and they were both crying, and Lorenzo Pellegrini, the Mafia boss, the widower, the father, the man who had not let himself love anyone in 3 years, took Emma Foster's face in his hands and kissed her. Slowly, reverently, like a man saying a prayer. When they pulled apart, Emma pressed her forehead against his. "I have conditions," she whispered. "Anything. Sophia comes first, always. Before me, before anything. Always. The foundation keeps going and gets bigger. We finish what she started, Lorenzo. Every single girl, every single name in those letters. Yes. And I want to be her mother, really, legally, if she'll have me. I know I can't replace Juliana. I would never try. But I want to adopt her. I want to be her mother on paper so that if anything ever happens to either of us, no court in the world can take her away from the other one." Lorenzo's eyes filled. "Emma, is that too much? It is the only thing I have wanted since the night she said your name." Emma kissed him again. When they walked into Sophia's room the next morning together, holding hands, matching quiet smiles on their faces, Sophia looked up from her coloring book, looked at the way they were standing, and broke into the biggest grin Emma had ever seen on her small face. "I knew it," she said. "You knew what, sweetheart? I knew Daddy was going to marry you. Mommy told me." Emma and Lorenzo froze. "Baby," Emma said carefully. "What do you mean Mommy told you?" Sophia put down her crayon. "In my dream, the night the bad man came. Mommy came to my dream, and she said, 'Soya, you have to be brave because Emma's coming, and Emma's going to be your new mommy, and Daddy is going to be happy again.' And then she kissed me, and then I woke up and Em was there." Emma couldn't speak. Lorenzo knelt down in front of his daughter. He took her small hands in his. "Did Mommy say anything else, baby?" Sophia nodded, very seriously. "She said to tell you she was proud of you, Daddy, and she said to tell you she was tired of waiting and she was going to go rest now, and that you were allowed to be happy." Lorenzo pressed his face into his daughter's small shoulder. Emma dropped to her knees behind him and wrapped her arms around both of them. And somewhere very far away, in a place where there is no more pain and no more running and no more cars that lose their brakes on dry roads, a woman in a white summer dress closed a very long book and smiled and walked at last into the light. They were married on a Saturday in September in the small garden behind the Pellegrini estate. There were only 14 guests, Matteo cried. Vinny walked Emma down the makeshift aisle because he said, "Miss Foster, you are family, and family does not walk alone." Sophia was the flower girl. Her hair had started to grow back a soft, downy cap of dark brown curls, and she threw rose petals with the serious concentration of a 6-year-old who believed with her whole heart that her mother was watching from somewhere very close by. At the end of the ceremony, when Lorenzo kissed his bride, Sophia ran up and wrapped her arms around both of their legs. "Now we're a family," she announced. "Yes, we are, baby," Emma whispered. "Forever. Forever." 3 months later, Sophia's cancer was declared in full remission. 6 months after that, Emma Pellegrini legally adopted Sophia Pellegrini in a quiet courtroom in Philadelphia. And Sophia, when the judge asked her if she wanted to take her new mother's name, looked up with enormous brown eyes and said, "I already have her name. We just made it official." The judge, a tough 60-year-old woman who had seen everything, had to excuse herself for a moment. The foundation Lorenzo built in Giuliana's name went on to rescue more than 300 girls over the next decade. Every one of them received a letter on their 18th birthday that began with the same words: "A long time ago, a woman in a white summer dress made a promise to a frightened little girl. This is her keeping that promise." Emma helped write every single one of those letters. And on Sophia's 10th birthday, when she asked her mother, her real mother, her living mother, the one who had walked into her bedroom when she was 6 years old and sat on the floor and waited for her where she had come from, Emma sat her down on the edge of her bed and opened a small wooden box and took out a photograph. A photograph of a little girl on a church step in Naples, and a woman in a white summer dress with her hand on the little girl's shoulder. "She came from the same place you did, baby," Emma whispered, smoothing her daughter's long dark curls. "She came from love, and she found her way home." Because sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is walk through a door they don't understand toward a life they did not plan for a child they have never met. And sometimes at the end of that long walk, they find that they have been walking home all along. Emma Pellegrini walked home, and she never ever had to run again.